All right, so first and foremost, I brought it. We got to start.
Go.
We got it. We got to start it off, man.
There we go. Here's the hat. Little
Yeah.
logo for people. The first person that shoots me a note from this episode on Instagram, shoot me a DM,
There
gets a
we go.
Magic Mind hat.
There we go. I'm gonna be that first person because I want one of those hats.
All right, you get one regardless. And then
Second
the next person. Yeah, exactly.
That sounds good, man.
What is
first and
up,
foremost,
Khordmaster?
How are you doing today, man? How are you?
Oh, great. Great. I'm having a 9 out of 10 day. The reason it's not a 10 out of 10 is I woke up a little bit late.
Okay.
And that always makes me feel like I'm just starting in a bit of a rush.
Okay. Okay. What time is it? What time is a little bit late for you?
5:45 was this morning, and I try to get up about 5.
Okay.
And we got 3 little daughters, so if I wake up at 5:45, that means I've got maybe 30 minutes of just solo quiet time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wake up, I look at the clock, and then I'm kind of like, I'm not going to have my full hour of quiet time. So it's total mind game. And it's probably very easy for me to override, but it just starts the day from like, oh, I'm a little bit behind
On what you wanted to. Dude, I could totally relate to that. I have one daughter at home, and this morning I got up earlier than I usually get up just because I couldn't sleep, and I'm kind of on the tail end of a cold, and you may hear from my voice and stuff. I'm trying to, monitor
You
it
sound
and
great.
stuff, get my voice back. Thank you. Appreciate that. But I say that to say, got up this morning, and it's rare that I do this, but I did it this morning. Got up and just sat at the table. I had like an hour before I usually would get up. And there's something about being up before most people are up, and certainly before your family's up. It's just like, and having this, I didn't have one of these this morning because I knew I was going to take it for the show. But I know you can do 2 or 3 or whatever a day. But I was just so focused. I had like things on my mind that I needed to get done, and I just like knocked them out. Boom, boom, boom. I'm like, I need to do this every day.
Yeah,
Point
it is the most powerful time of day and the most powerful feeling throughout the day to be like, man, I started the day in the black. I got ahead instead of I'm in the red from 5:45 on or whatever that time is with 3 little girls. It's they wake up about 6:25, 6:30. So that's the forcing function over here. But man, that time before others are up, I was a crazy night out. So this seems like this is almost ridiculous for me to say that 5:45 was sleeping in because in college, for example, I never took a class before 11 a.m. I would not sign up for it, and I had one class before noon, and it was the one at 11. So I oriented my whole life around making music in the middle of the night. I mean, my roommates would walk in, I'd be making music at 4 a.m. And I would be like, that's my quiet time. But man, that was quiet time after a long day, and for the night owls out there, it's not bad to get. You got to get that quiet time where you can get it, but it is so much more powerful after 4 or 5 days of adjusting to a early morning. Magic Mind obviously helps immensely with kind of shifting that start time of the day. But 4 or 5 days shifting to an earlier time period. Every one of my friends that I tell this to, and I've been on this soapbox for years, for like 5 years now. But every one of my friends I tell this to completely ignore it. Then like a few weeks, maybe a few months later, they shoot me a text. They're like, man, I woke up before 8, or man, I woke up before 7, whatever their time was that they wanted to set it. And like I was twice as productive the whole day. I was like, it is almost like a law of nature.
Yeah. And I like what you said too about the 4 or 5 days, because I imagine just like anything, you have like a habit that you start, but also your body is probably going to want to sleep earlier than maybe you're used to by the end of that 5th or 6th day, and it probably becomes easier. It's not like you're forcing yourself to go down earlier so that you can get up earlier. It's like you want to go down earlier so that you can get up earlier and kind of continue with this momentum that you've built, right?
Yeah, that I've got, being the founder of Magic Mind, obviously know all of the ins and outs of the supplementation game. And the most powerful thing, maybe the best advice I ever got in my life was, and it's so funny because for listeners, we will get to music. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But this stuff is foundational. And I say this all the time, that some of the best advice I ever got in my life, professional, personal, relationship, was from a sleep doctor. Maybe 8-9 years ago. And my wife, this is our studio, this is where I make music, and this is where my wife paints, and my wife's over here. So she's probably heard me say this. Kevin says, hey. She's probably smiling because she's heard me say this a million times, because it really is the best advice I've ever gotten. Yeah. The sleep doctor told me about 8 years ago. She said, wake up every morning at the same time. And after a few days, maybe it's 5 days, maybe it's 8 days, but after a few days, you won't need an alarm clock. And you'll naturally crave waking up at that time because it sets your 24-hour circadian rhythm. So I thought circadian rhythms or rhythms around sleep and energy really only applied to while you're asleep or at night. But she was like, no, it's 24 hours. So if it takes you 2 hours to get into flow state or to get into a rhythm, 3 hours. I remember a friend telling me it took him until noon before he felt like he was in flow in the day. And it was because he was waking up every day at different times. 6 a.m., 8 a.m., 11 a.m., 7 a.m. And your circadian rhythm, your biological rhythms, never build a formula of, okay, this is when we release the melatonin at night. This is when we release the cortisol in the morning that helps you get up. So you're trying to wake up without any of your body's natural, as they say, your body's the best pharmacy in the world. You don't get any of that help from your biological rhythms when you're waking up at all kinds of different times. And then she said this other thing that was almost as powerful. She said, if you ever want to change your sleep rhythm, if you ever want to change the time that you go to bed so that you can wake up at the same time and wake up earlier if you want to do that. But this isn't even really about waking up early. It's just about setting a rhythm to where you're in flow within 15 minutes of waking up, where you don't feel like you're like, I need 2 cups of coffee. And you basically wake up and you're kind of like, man, I feel in the pocket already. 15 minutes in, you're journaling or doing whatever you want to do and start your day. Maybe it's jumping in the gym. Maybe it's driving straight to work. But in 15 minutes, you're in that flow from waking up every morning at the same time and setting that 24-hour biological rhythm clock. But the other thing she said was, if you ever want to reset the time that you're going to bed, so for the night owls out there that want to reset the time to have that fruit that I just mentioned of waking up every morning at the same time, she said take 300 micrograms of melatonin, not milligrams. Milligrams is the devil when it comes to good sleep, because if you take like the standard milligrams at CVS or on Amazon would probably be about 3 milligrams. So that's 10 times more than what I'm saying.
Yeah.
3 milligrams overrides your body's natural production of melatonin. So your body just needs it. Once you start taking milligrams, your body's like, oh, hey, Kevin's good. We don't need to produce anymore because he's got the 3 or the 5, whatever he's taking. I have a surfer friend, pro surfer, that takes 20 when he needs help sleeping. And I'm like, dude, your body, you might get good sleep that night, but then your body gets all these mixed signals of what to produce. So she said micrograms. And you take it about 3 hours before you want to go to bed. Let's say you're going to bed at 2 a.m. and you want to reset it to 10 p.m. and start waking up at 6. That's 8 hours. Like, it's super. That's a healthy schedule. Take it at 7 p.m. and 3 hours later, that micrograms kickstarts your body's natural production of melatonin. So by 10 p.m., you are exhausted. You're ready to pass out. But yeah, so those 2 pieces of advice. Everything about this conversation is about rhythm. Everything about the universe is about rhythm. And yeah, the reason it takes 4 or 5 days is rivers don't turn at 90-degree angles. Nothing in nature is a start-stop. It's all moving with rhythms of things. If you try to start-stop it, like pushing back a wave, maybe it works for a little bit, but the natural rhythms of nature will they'll overpower you. You know, so that rhythm is so foundational to everything I do. Running multiple companies, running multiple venture funds, 3 little kids. So when I get out of that rhythm, I know, oh, there's going to be some downstream effects of I woke up late, so I'm a little out of rhythm.
Sure. All right. Amazing information. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I have to write this down, but then I'm like, oh, I don't have to write it down because it's being recorded, and I can just pause it and go back to it later. So this is actually super helpful for me to hear, just because this is stuff that I'm genuinely interested in. Like when you prefaced it and said one of the best pieces of advice that you've ever gotten, I knew it was going to be great. I love that introduction to what comes next. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And I'm going to say something that we're going to come back to towards the end of the conversation. But we're going to talk about a lot of different things, your background, Magic Mind, music, all that stuff. But one of the things that excited me the most about this conversation is several things, but one that I'm very excited about is that you have a passion for music production based on our many conversations, teenage engineering gear, all that stuff. We both love making music. However, to my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, you mentioned multiple. I didn't even know about the multiple, but I knew about Magic Mind, of course, that we referenced earlier in the show. You have Magic Mind, which is like your company. It's I imagine the bread and butter. That's like the main focus in terms of financial stability and stuff like that. So what's fascinating to me that we'll talk about later, but keep it in the back of your mind, is that you figured out a way to not inherently inject your passion of music into what it is that's providing success for you, so that you could call music your fun thing that you enjoy doing, which I'm on a journey right now figuring that out, right? I've been trying so hard, not even so hard, but a good amount, right? Like with my music, whether it's tutorials, whether it's, gear reviews, brand partnerships, all that stuff, which I still do. But I'm realizing that some elements of music production, especially just making music, just playing the piano, just producing, that absolutely needs to be something that doesn't have a need or desire to make money off of in order to keep it just that pure funness. So don't even answer that, or it wasn't even a question. I want to talk a little bit more about that later, but we're going to start.
Well, I'm happy to just slightly correct in that Magic Mind is also a passion project. It's become a big company, but it's a passion project. In that my main bread and butter of income is actually through investing. I'm an investor in startups. I've been building some, but to the spirit of your question, everything is a passion project. There is no like day job, and then the other things are what it supports. It's all I know are passion projects that I love doing. So I've been building startups for 15 years, and then I've been investing in startups for the last 10. But when I sit down to make music, I'm not like this is on the side or this is the back burner. I mean, when I'm sitting down and I'm tinkering and troubleshooting the OB4 with you, I'm pursuing that troubleshooting and that rhythm of making music as much as I'm sitting down in my inbox knocking out things for Magic Mind, or the 2 other companies are a healthy salad dressing company called Side Dish. I just realized if someone could make healthy tasty, then we'd all eat a lot more of it. And salads, I'd have, once in a blue moon, have an amazing tasting salad, and then try it again and 20 straight duds. So I was like, all right, how can we make sure that every salad that our family makes is tasty? So partnered with a friend of ours, Alex. She's she's like a huge Instagram influencer, New York Times bestselling author. So I was like, hey, I know how to build these things. I know how to do the e-commerce side of things like the back of my hand. Let's partner on the actual dressings and you really be the face of it. That's also a key to rhythm, by the way, is not clinging to the credit of these things. I've hired a GM for that. So I'm not like, man, 10 years ago, Kev, I needed to be in the weeds on everything. I thought like, no, if I'm not there, then things are going to fall apart. What an exhausting way to live life. That's like, do you need to be involved in your nails growing, your beard growing, your digestion? No, some things you can contribute your little part and then let others that are made for that aspect. Maybe it's day-to-day operations and financial planning for a salad dressing company. I don't need to be involved in that. And someone else loves that stuff. And that's their kind of nature. So finding my nature, finding where I can contribute and doing it so wrong all of my 20s was just like failure after failure because I was I was trying to do every instrument in the band, to use the metaphor, instead of feeling like, you know what, actually there's one role that I can play really well. So Magic Mind is kind of a passion project that's become a big company. Side Dish is starting to become a big company as well. And then I'm incubating a third company called Apt. This is way too much information for you, but I just wanted to give you the full 360. Apt is an AI personality test company because what I realized in that formula of realizing like, okay, I love the keys in this band. I don't need to play horns. I don't need to play drums. In fact, I need to find people in an ensemble that love those things instead of trying to do it all and pulling my hair out. And I realized so many people don't know what they are phenomenal at. So I started this company, Apt. You can go to tryapt.ai if anyone's listening, for an AI-powered personality test. It's the most powerful, it's the simplest and the most powerful personality test out there. 5 minutes, and it uses 283 billion data points using AI to give you back a reading on all of the top personality tests. So one 5-minute quiz and you get all of the personality test results back instead of, like a 30-minute quiz here. And then you hear 2 weeks later, oh, I need to do this test. None of that. Just one 5-minute quiz, you get everything back. And that's the same thing. I hired a CEO for that because I just don't care about the credit. I don't care about those 3 letters, CEO. I did in my 20s. And that ego of whether it was needing control or needing those 3 letters was just, like I said, it was so exhausting. So that as well, it was like, oh, here's something that I love doing, and to continue that band metaphor, let me write music for this thing that I'm feeling, and it just happened to be a company, in Apt. But so when I'm writing music, it's the same thing. I'm just sitting down and I'm wholly focused on. Usually, it is it all starts with the open one field.
Has to.
So oh God, is the greatest. Can we please spend a lot of time talking about how great this device is? But so I sit down with that with the same intention. There's no like, okay, this is below subservient to the other things. And then investing in startups. I'll get an email about a startup, a text from a friend saying, here's a cool startup. Same thing. I jump into that meeting. Although I do very, very, very few meetings. I do mostly talk about rhythms and foundations. If you want to have a good day, it starts 2 days prior with the right prioritization, the right good amount of sleep. So similarly, if you want to have a good music writing session, that starts with the rhythms you set 2 days before, in my view. With investing, I love investing and helping founders and startups, but I'm an investor in 200 companies. So the only way I can really do it in flow is I have a blog post called Asynchronous Working. And so I do nearly everything, maybe 2 meetings a week where it just needs to be in person like this. And then other than that, it's all asynchronous. Email or loom.com is one of my, it's epic tool to just screen record or record yourself. It's basically like video walkie-talkie.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
So if you and I, like over text for the OB4 stuff, when we were troubleshooting the OB4, instead of us needing to be like, hey, Kev, when can you jump on the phone? 4 p.m., 7 p.m.? It was just me being able to text you. an hour later you could text me back, or a voice note, or I think I sent you a video and then you sent me a video back. That is so much more effective, productive than how humans we typically operate. We're like, well, we've always done meetings, so we should just do a meeting to get to know each other, instead of, hey, Khordmaster, I love the sound of your startup. Could you record an overview of what you're building and send it to me using loom.com? And by sticking to these kind of boundaries where I'm like, look, I know I'm going to lose money. I'll leave money on the table if I'm not taking every meeting under the sun. But I don't care to lose money if I can stay in rhythm and flow and keep my sanity. So I'm going to try to introduce this new tool to Khordmaster to record his startup on using this loom.com thing. And maybe he does. Maybe he's like, I don't want to. I'm so used to only doing meetings. But I don't really care, because I care about the flow and that rhythm so much. I protect it. I protect it like I'd protect a child.
Let me ask a question about the music, because I want to have a clear distinction here, because I think the the concept that I was kind of envisioning is, okay, well, what you just provided clarity on is like your attention and your focus and the way that you go about this thing versus that thing is very similar from what I mean, it's like almost the same, like no matter what the thing is. However, what I'm curious about is music. Is music a thing that you, even though you're putting the same amount of focus on it, the return that you're getting is not, correct me if I'm wrong, is it a monetary return like you get with Magic Mind, or is it a peace of mind, good feeling, like what music I think is
rhythm return?
Yeah,
rhythm
right?
return.
Okay.
So
yeah,
it's I think anyone doing stuff for anything to do with numbers has nothing to do with rhythm. Said another way, anything that, and I have a podcast, philosophy podcast called Yoga for Your Intellect, where it's all spiritual philosophy. So I'm an unabashed fan of spiritual rhythm and a foundation to a higher ideal. And that could literally be service for others, or it could be God, whatever God means. It's a pretty undefinable thing. But that same thing, it's a rhythm return. And I say on that podcast all the time, anything to do with numbers has nothing to do with God. So when I say I approach, we spent 5 minutes talking about sleep. There's no financial return on sleep in a direct way. But any of us that don't prioritize it, there is not a soul in the history of humankind that could make a good financial return on anything that they did if they didn't prioritize, if they didn't sleep for 5 days. Doesn't matter what your job is. You could be, I remember someone calculating that, like back in the day when I was in high school, every time Alex Rodriguez stepped up to the plate, he was going to make something like $35,000 just by stepping up and swinging the bat. 35 grand. Yeah. And that might be the financial return playing that game, but you don't get to that point without realizing the foundations, whether you call them rhythms, whether you call them foundation. He's probably prioritizing the hell out of his sleep to get to that point.
Yeah.
And so music for me is that's part of my rhythm. That's part of that's my meditation in many ways.
Gotcha.
So so there's no direct return on investment in a financial way, but I don't think about that with music, and two, I don't think about that when I am investing. When you'd think that's a discipline that should be all about financial returns, I think about a year ago, people calculated returns and globally of angel investing, and I think I retweeted what they had calculated in this big list. So a lot of eyeballs were on this list, and I was the number 2 angel investor on this list globally. And I had my lawyer had calculated, my accountant had calculated the financial return. I had never calculated the financial return. All I cared about is knowing I've been in the trenches, I've been in that seat, and I have effed up so many things as a founder. I want to be helpful to other founders. And I also just recognize that a really great, helpful way you can be is with capital and with advice and insight. So, so it's, startups just can really benefit from a $50K check or something. So but that has never like, all right, this covers the bills for me to do music. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah. Let's 2 more questions about the biz. This is really, really great stuff. I love these conversations because I'm a big fan of learning, which is part of the reason, part of what brings me so much joy having this platform, and connecting with people. And I just before we even continue, I'm just taking it all in, and it's working out perfect. You're providing so much knowledge and great information that I could do more listening today, which is great, coinciding with my voice situation. So it's perfect. So keep it going. I'm going to say two more topics, and then we're going to talk a little bit about music. So first, about the AI-driven personality test. I want to talk a little bit more about that because I was just having conversations with people recently about AI and about specifically how it's something that's been around for a long time, but now it's a lot more prevalent than it has. It's a lot more, people talk about it a lot more. I'm ultra, and I'm sure you are too. That's why you're doing what you're doing now. I'm ultra fascinated with things that AI can be used for that are maybe not obvious, but will be like, oh, of course, in a year or in a few years. Like thinking about like Airbnb and the internet and like Uber and the internet, for example. These are 2 examples that, oh, of course these things exist. These are like part of the zeitgeist, part of the ecosystem now. So I'm fascinated to talk a little bit more about that startup. First of all, you said you can go to the website now and try it out. Is it?
Yeah, it's in a beta version, but it's still more powerful already than any other personality test out there. So try apt.ai. Try apt, A-P-T, .ai. But real quick, what are your different? I want to know your different, to the outside world, they might look like silos of your professional and personal life. But I'm sure to you it's quite cohesive. The whole purpose of apt is discover what you're meant to do, because it's a big part of, and the oldest philosophy in the world. That's what the podcast Yoga for Your Intellect is about. It's called Vedanta. It comes from these 4 textbooks, the Vedas, if you've ever heard of them. They're the oldest philosophical textbooks in the world. They predate, like, we think we're hip to philosophy in the West because of Socrates, or the pre-Socratic philosopher. The first philosopher in the West is a guy named Thales that we know of. He's a Greek philosopher in about 600 BC. The dudes and dudettes in India had been doing this at that point for 6,000 years already, that we know of. Wow. Okay. So that philosophy, Vedanta, I wish I'd come across it when I was younger. We just never talk about it in the West. It's quite big, and it's the source of all Eastern philosophy. Hinduism gets built on top of that. Buddhism is essentially Hinduism made for export as it leaves India, enters China. Zen in Japan is a derivation of Buddhism, but you follow it all back to these 4 textbooks, the Vedas, Vedanta. And a massive, massive component of this philosophy it's a word called swadharma, your nature. And it's about finding and fulfilling your nature. And there's even a line in one of the texts that says, if you pursue your nature, you'll attain immediate peace. And if you are pursuing your paradharma, something that's foreign to you because, well, I can make more money doing this, it is disaster for your life. And it will continue, it will never fulfill, satisfy, or give you peace. So you're signing up for a life that is absent of peace by being like, well, I should be an investment banker, or I shouldn't pursue music because it won't, pay the bills. So I think that's something that your listeners might, and apt is just built to the tagline. It's right there, right when you load it up, is discover what you're meant to do. So that's an important aspect to, and maybe it's a few different things. But what are the things that you do during the day, and what are the things you feel like you're meant to do?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the most basic or the most, I guess, high level or low level way of looking at it is like making a positive impact. And between those two, I know it's a vague thing, between those two things, like the two main areas that I do that with are definitely my tutoring business, where I do math, English, and piano lessons, K through 12, and in person and virtual. That's something that I'm extraordinarily passionate about. I love working with kids. I love math. I love teaching, all that stuff. So that's one major avenue. And then the other avenue, of course, is content, is music production, is tutorials, things like that. And what I'm trying to figure out at this point is, I've heard from some people, like, one of these two things really should be a primary, and everything else, shouldn't be the same level of importance, because you won't be able to like really take off if you're kind of half in, all the different things that you're doing. That's one thing that I've heard, which I'm still figuring out how true it is and whether or not it applies to me, right? Because everything that we hear may or may not, we're all different. We all think different. We all, react to things differently. So I'm still figuring that piece out. But ultimately, those are the two main areas. And then in addition to those two, we have Khordmaster keys. We have the fact that, I talked about making a positive impact. So here's another quite different than the first two things that I mentioned, way that I look at myself as being able to make a positive impact by having a thoughtful, hopefully enjoyable for the guests, but certainly enjoyable for me. I shouldn't even say hopefully. I think 99.9% of my guests have all said they really enjoy it. So I won't even like downplay my ability to conduct a great conversation, right? I shouldn't do that. So that's one piece. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. And so that's another piece. Khordmaster keys, like making connections. Like I love doing this. And so, like you said earlier, people say, "Oh, what's your purpose with the show? What are you working towards?" I have ideas, but for now, it's just something that I enjoy doing. And like the way I love what you said earlier, no matter, like, everything doesn't have to have a monetary value. Ultimately, maybe nothing really should be focused on that. Everything should have some other value that it's bringing you. And that's kind of where I am with those three things right now. I'll pause for a sec, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that those three things are beautiful. I think it is always helpful to, I wrote another essay called The Multipath Career, where in 2023 you can do multiple things. Because it doesn't require you to spend 40, 50 hours a week in a geographic location, in a building, and you don't have your music equipment. And in that essay, I talked about how you have architects. Now I've been doing this for nearly 100 years, where they'll work on multiple projects at once. One in the concepting phase, one in the foundational breaking ground phase, and one in the finishing phase. And it's completely normal for an architect to have three different projects that they're like plates. You got to keep them spinning. You got to check in with them. But they've got all three because they no longer needed to be on site as roles like a general contractor started to become more prevalent. So they didn't need to be on site every day. So they could actually work on a few. Similarly, this is happening in knowledge work. In the last few years, obviously accelerated by COVID, where in knowledge work, now people can work from home and they can touch base on three different projects. One might be in the concepting phase. One might be in the foundational phase. Okay, there's a metaphor might be, okay, there was a little bit of a wave in that concept. Now it's 18 months in. Now let me lean into it because it's building. I also have tried to ride waves in that concepting phase. There's no real wave there to ride, so I just toss it. I might put 20 grand into a project that I'm like, oh, this isn't going anywhere. Let me toss it. And have no real attachment to it. So it's pretty easy to be like, all right, I didn't lose 20 grand. I invested 20 grand. And thankfully I invested it in two different projects. At the exact same time I started Magic Mind, I also started this podcasting. It was meant to be like a sports talk show podcasting network, where I take a lot of these sports radio hosts that are on terrestrial radio and just everybody's craving fewer commercials and everything, and on demand instead of like having to tune the radio while they're in the car. And try to get them onto this thing called Playcast. Put about 20 grand into it. It went nowhere. But there has not been a single minute in my life that I'm like, I lost 20 grand in that. Because at the same time, I tested 20 grand out with Magic Mind. And that was probably after 2 years of just kind of like seeing, is there a wave here? People do want more than just a crap ton of caffeine. They do want more than just coffee. Coffee is not that. I knew from 10 years of just solving my own problem with a heart condition, I knew that there's so many other things that nature and science give us beyond coffee to get us into a motivated flow state, productive rhythm. So like there was a listening mode. I felt like, okay, there's something here. There was also the listening mode with this Playcast thing. But after a few months, one had some momentum, the other one didn't. Shut it down. The one that didn't Playcast, it was so easy. Leaned into the momentum of Magic Mind. So sometimes it's you plant 1,000 flowers to see what grows. So you work on 3 things, and one goes from that seed stage. It starts to grow a little bit from that concepting stage into, okay, let's build a foundation to it. And that might be all at the same time that you're, a high school math teacher. And you've got that part of that multi-path career. That where you're like, all right, that's the building that's already being built, and it needs the maintenance and everything, but and all the finishing touches. But at the same time, I can spend a bit of time with these other things. With the high school math teacher, it's a bit more difficult because it needs to be in person. But I mean, Matt, everybody knows teachers get 3 months of vacation in the summer, so you got the time. But maybe it's you're working customer support, so that you can work from home and pursue music. And maybe that pursuit of music is the same that you'd pursue going into the gym. It's just a gym for your mind, and its own cognitive benefits, where there's no financial return like we talked about, but it's just part of your rhythm. And man, if you set boundaries, say, okay, I can't be the high school math teacher and pursue music. I'm gonna look for. Apt will actually tell you the top job results.
That's pretty cool.
For your personality, but one of them might be customer support because you selected you want to work remotely. If you set these boundaries, where you're like, all right, I'm no longer going to work in an office so that I can have the time to work at home and do these other pursuits. Momentum is a function of boundaries, because if you want to build momentum in anything you're pursuing, that's from, like me saying no to meetings. It's through setting these boundaries. And boundaries then give you this momentum, because it's like anything that has momentum. That bike that's building momentum as you're pedaling. You've made the conscious decision, right foot, left foot, going forward. If you're turning 170 degrees, 140 degrees, 160 degrees, you will build no momentum in that. But if you say, all right, I'm going to set this, and no one even thinks about it in these terms, but this boundary of I'm not going to turn 140 degrees 8 times over the next 10 seconds, you'll start to build momentum. So that momentum comes from boundaries. In our life, it's there's momentum in a few different projects, and that part of that is because there's a whole shit ton of boundaries being set right around them that people might not see.
And that coincides with like people saying, like having discerning when and how to say and what to say no to, right? You kind of like open to every idea or everything that comes your way, then you'll never, the way you just described it, you'll never be able to build momentum in what it is that you're working on. And that takes wisdom, that takes experience sometimes, and that takes like, I guess the acceptance that, like you just said with the meetings earlier, like having 2 meetings, like you're accepting the fact that you may miss out on something. Like someone.
Oh, I
reaches out,
will.
it's like,
Not even may.
yeah,
I know I'm going to miss
you
out.
will.
I know I'm
Yeah.
leaving money on the table.
Right. And that shouldn't matter because the other stuff that you're doing is, you use the word rhythm multiple times, but they're all kind of working in harmony, providing different things for you to allow you to be able to succeed in each area. Let me ask one more question about Magic Mind, then we can talk music. So,
I want to ask you about the OPZ. And that's this coming in as brushing my teeth this morning. I was like, man, I need to understand the OPZ because do not get it.
Okay,
and the people that get it's kind of like when I explain the open one field to people. I'm like, no, I know you don't get it, but I'm about to rock your world by telling you 3 times because it's so important. So let's touch on the OPZ.
Oh, I'd be thrilled to you know that's my thing. I actually have it. Coincidentally, have it right here. I love this case too. I just started using this one again.
Oh, cool!
This leather punch case from TE. It's like,
oh, really? It's from them.
Yep, like the inside all yellow. It just makes it look so cool. Like, So we'll definitely talk about it. I was gonna say when I go to cafes with Magic Mind, I do the like whatever natural herbal like iced tea that they have, and I'll like mix this with it, and that's just my bread and butter. I love it so much. My question for you, and you don't have to answer this, but also you do have to answer it. No, you don't. But we were talking before. I wanted to know if there's any glimpse of Easter eggs or hints that you can share with me and the audience about what's to come, because I know something is to come with Magic Mind.
Yes, I can say this. We're talking about rhythms, and rhythm is a 360-degree exploration from, like what we mentioned, rhythm in your work. You want that financial, if that financial return is the thing you're focused on, then that requires a 360-degree look at your life of your rhythms. Getting into productivity should be measured in years, not in hours, not in days. And so if you really want, let's say your goal is to be the world's greatest private equity investor, all numbers all day long, and make $100 million. So your whole thing, your whole religion is numbers. Or it's to get to 100 million streams or 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, whatever it is. Let's say your whole goal is all numbers all the time. You still will need to do a 360-degree audit you'll still need to get sleep. You'll still need to dissect, okay, that's going to take at least 2 years, 3 years for one of those I mentioned might take you 30 years. So you're going to have to really assess, okay, how can I do this for 2 years or how can I do this for 30 years, whichever that goal is. That could be the most number-centric person out there. Still needs to dissect multiple aspects of what they do in life, in and out of the office, in and out of their profession, like sleep or what they eat. So similarly, if productivity should be measured in years, not in hours or days, Magic Mind is built to where day 7 you feel better than day 1, day 77 you feel better than day 7. There's no like short term, I felt great for a day and then I feel like shit the next day. But there is another aspect beyond just that morning ritual, and it has to do with an evening ritual. We touched on sleep. If you, like I said earlier, if you want to have a great day, it starts with great sleep 2 nights before. So that's the only thing I'll say about what might be coming down the pike with Magic Mind.
Cool.
And it might be within that advice around how critical great sleep is.
Give my father, who's going to be watching this, a 10 second or however long, like a brief kind of like, what is this?
Well, first off, let's get this out of the way. Mr. Allen, hell of a job with Kevin, because dude, you are a gem. And every one of us that watches you online, it's so much fun to watch what you do, and I'm sure I even bet, because I create so many things and have tried to put things out on YouTube, and it is a hard nut to crack. And so I see I think you've got like what, 7,000 subscribers?
Yeah, about that. Yep.
dude, that is friggin' hard for people listening. I think we all get used to, as audience members, used to 100,000 subscribers. The first 1,000 is the hardest, and 7 is really hard to get to. So kudos to you. And in the back of my mind, I'm always like, I hope Kevin's family, your whole family should listen to this episode. I hope they all let him keep doing this, because the community, I'm gaining so much from your videos, and I know how spouses can be sometimes, or siblings, or family members that love you, that maybe they're just not into the music gear that you're into. So they're like, is that really worth it? Is that worth doing? And I'm here to tell all of them, and yourself, in case you ever had any doubts, unequivocally, absolutely worth it. 1,000%. I get so much out of your videos and learn so much. I've got this OB4 here because not only of your videos, but also your very kind help one-on-one when I was trying to troubleshoot it. So, and just the way that you do it, how you talk about it, how patient you are with not only your craft, but also listeners, walking people through it. It's hard to make these videos and be in that kind of investment mode for years before it gets that financial return back. But that's so Mr. Allen, first off, congrats for creating a hell of a son. You're a special dude, Kevin. Then it's every word of that. But then to your question, what is Magic Mind? It's essentially, think of it like a healthier, organic, more effective 5-hour energy. And all of the main ingredients in there that I love are organic. The whole drink isn't official organic yet. It's about to be. But it's a healthier, more organic, and more effective 5-hour energy where you get... and it's not built on caffeine. So you can actually pair it with your morning coffee if you love that morning coffee or that morning tea, whatever you start your current morning routine with, add a Magic Mind into it, and it'll make that first cup of coffee last 7 to 8 hours. It's phenomenal at getting you into that flow state, a great groove, we like to say. It gets you dialed in and not amped up to where we call it the world's first productivity drink. So it's built around melting that to-do list. It's not built around amping you up to where you're like excitable and kind of jittery. It's much more like, man, I'm just knocking things out in my to-do list. How did my to-do list completely evaporate today?
I feel like for me and you, correct me if I'm wrong, for me and you and people like us, we are businessmen, entrepreneurs, so we have things that we need to get done. So this is the way you just described it, super impactful and helpful with that. But man, if I were to tell you, I have my Nord Piano 5 over there that I'm like leaning into heavy now, like with lessons, and so I take lessons and I also provide piano lessons, but leaning into just trying to level up, just be the best piano player I can be. And when I go into these 35-minute Pomodoro, sessions where no distractions are there and I'm just like locked into like learning something new, this is also, it like aligns perfectly with that too. And I may have done a video or I've talked about it on a post or something, but like having this, because I need to be focused, I need to be not distracted. I'm like, it's not as fun if I'm learning a new piece and having to like, get the sight reading levels up. It's like studying almost, right? Like back in my engineering days. And so this is like catered to me in a way that maybe no product I think is, which is really cool.
10 years over 10 years of research has gone into it, starting with a heart condition that I got about 10 years ago from drinking too much caffeine. And my doctor saying, with your condition, you really can't drink more than 80 milligrams of caffeine a day. And I was like, is that 2 cups, 3 cups of coffee? And he was like, no, that's a half a cup. And I was like, I was drinking 6 to 7 at that time. Running my last company, 50 employees, 15 meetings a day, and just thought I needed that much caffeine to get through the day. Having no clue it was doing that much damage to my heart, but also spiking. Caffeine spikes your body's cortisol, your body's stress hormone. So I had no idea it was also leading to this incredibly high-grade, pervasive stress each day. And I thought coffee was getting me through the day. Coffee was the thing. Caffeine was really disrupting my day. in ways I had no clue about, but also took me to the ER. My heart was beating 175 beats a minute for 3 weeks. I just had no idea. I thought I just had like butterflies in my stomach.
Wow.
So it was really, really serious condition. But I had to figure out how to make those 80 milligrams, that half a cup of coffee, last all day. And my engineering brain just went crazy. And what does nature and science, what does it give us that can make that half a cup last all day? Always thinking, well, it'll never be as good as coffee at all, but I'll just get close. To now, 10 years later, I think the exact opposite now. The chances that we're all still just drinking coffee or caffeine and an energy drink 20 years from now, I put that at 0%, because I ended up writing a book on this whole world called Beyond Coffee, a sustainable guide to nootropics, adaptogens, and functional mushrooms. So things that nature gives us beyond just the coffee bean or the tea leaf for energy and productivity. And there's just no way that we've got 40 years of really robust science behind these other compounds, herbs, roots, ingredients that there's just no chance that amount of research doesn't continue to make its way into our collective kind of culture. So Magic Mind is one of those ways. And to your point about staying in the zone, one of my favorite ingredient in Magic Mind is this ingredient called Bacopa moneri. It's this herb from India, and Bacopa decreases impulsivity. So you take Bacopa and especially the version that we have in Magic Mind, which has the right bacosides, which is just way too much science for the typical listener, but the Bacopa in Magic Mind helps decrease impulsivity, where you're sitting down at the piano, you're sitting down at your inbox. Whatever you want to get done, you're just like, man, I don't want to jump into social media. I don't want to turn on the TV. I actually just want to finish what I'm working on right now. It's really powerful for that.
That's interesting and awesome, knowing what is causing me to not have those impulses. So that's super helpful to hear. I guess 2 more quick questions. One, you should be taking this every day, even on the days where you don't need to be focused, in order to get the full effect over time. That's what it sounded like you said earlier.
Right. Yeah. So some of these ingredients like Bacopa or ashwagandha or rhodiola, it can take 5 to 7 days to build to full effect.
Gotcha.
You'll get 60% of the benefits of the drink in day one, maybe 70%, depending on who you are. But to get 100% of the effects, it takes a few days to build a full effect. The reason is, so cordyceps mushrooms, for example, is the way that caffeine works for us is caffeine will block our adenosine receptors in our brain that tell us that we're building fatigue. So caffeine just blocks our neuroreceptors, telling us we're building fatigue. It actually does not. Caffeine doesn't give us energy in a conventional way. It can elevate our cortisol, stress, to where we feel like stressed. But that's like me punching you and saying I'm giving you energy. The compounds that in nature that give us energy, they help our body produce what's called ATP, the body's fuel currency. To produce more ATP, to produce more energy in the body, just takes a few days. It's not 30 minutes in like a cup of coffee. So an ingredient in Magic Mind like cordyceps mushrooms is really great at producing more ATP, but it just takes 5 to 7 days for you to feel that full effect. It's not like caffeine, which it's almost like caffeine turns the check engine light off immediately, but it doesn't improve the engine. To improve the engine takes a little bit of work. It's not as instantaneous, but it's far more sustainable.
Gotcha. All right, let's talk music. OPZ, OP1. I have questions for you with the OP1 field. You have questions for me with the OPZ. Where do we start?
Yeah, let's start with the OPZ. And with our last 10 minutes, I really want to know, I'm going to be selfish and just ask you to talk through your cold. What is it about the OPZ? Once a famous thing within teenage engineering is people buy it, don't use it, and then like 3 months later they try to use it. They're like, I don't understand this workflow, and then 3 months later it all clicks. When was the moment that it clicked for you, and what is it about it that clicked to where you're like, oh my God, I'm taking this everywhere?
Yeah, so I'll preface it and say that as someone who's tried a ton of different pieces of music equipment, have been, blessed for the opportunity to work with brands and all that stuff. It's very important to know that some devices people jive with and some people may not. Meaning, what I say about why I love this so much, there's going to be some people who will try it out and be like, oh my God, I totally understand it now. And then there's going to be some people who try it out and are still like, yeah, I get it, but it's still not fun for me making music on there. And that's just the way, that's just like something that I learned over time, right? Because I've tried to watch videos and force my way in to kind of understand and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, it didn't take long at all. This is the first Teenage Engineering product that I purchased, and one of the only ones actually that I actually purchased, because I am affiliated with them now. But it's my first one that I bought when it first came out, right around the time, I think 2017, 2018 or something. I historically have always been into, when I used to make music when I was like 16 and stuff, I've been as I realize this now, a sequencer based music producer and not an audio based music producer. So a lot of the stuff that I made on like my Yamaha Motif back in the day was laying something down via MIDI in this workstation and then being like, oh, this sounds cool, let me go ahead from here and let me go put a different preset on there and like hear what I just recorded, but hear it with a total different sort of sound, right? I can morph it after the fact, whereas we know with audio you can do that, but you have to put audio effects over it and stuff like that. I never really made music like that back in the day. So I put that down to say, like, this being a sequencer and the OP1 field being a non-sequencer, although it has sequencers in it, this spoke to me immediately. The OP1 field and the original OP1 absolutely did not. I've had to, and I still am having to, like, sort of like what you just described, months after the fact. Now I'm like, oh, I can use it this way. Oh, I can do this. It's not conventional, but I'm like learning ways that it really makes sense, especially with me being a piano player. But there's a lot of things to love about it. I would just say that I'll mention like three things right off the bat. One of them is the master track. The master track on the OPZ is one of the coolest things in terms of making music, specifically in the sequence world, ever. The reason for that is with the master track, you can sequence key changes. So think for a second, if I have a, 4-bar loop going on where the bass is, maybe let's just say it's the same bass note. It's the same exact bass note at the beginning of every, just keeping it super simple. Boom, 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 same C, low bass note. That's going, and you're listening to that, and you're like, okay, that sounds basic. That's not special. But from there, you can sequence key changes, and you could tell the device which tracks, whether it's just the bass, whether it's the bass and the synth and the chord, or the bass synth chord and the arpeggio, as well as maybe the drums if you wanted to, which is a whole nother thing. But you can tell it which of those that you wanted to apply to, and then you could sequence key changes, which means I can have 8 bars now going, and I'm sequencing when the key is changing, which is just mind-boggling as someone like me who has to, you have to play these key changes itself. So I do that a ton on here.
What, could you give me a verbal audio version of what that would sound like if it's just almost like a bass 4 on the floor of boom?
Yeah. Okay. So you have the bass 4 on the floor going, and then you have a slight variance with like the synth one, right? Like a little basic synth lead or whatever going. So if you're playing that and it's doing the same thing over and over, you can make it so that like I can then go to the master track and now set like a 8-bar on the master track and make it so that on bar 1 it's doing what we just recorded. But now I can simply go to the next bar, so bar 2 out of 8, and I can press and hold like any note, and you can do it in real time. This is the other thing, right? So like it's playing, and then I can press and hold without recording any of these notes, and now everything that you're applying it to, it's gonna be a different note. It's gonna be not just what do you call it? Like sending all the notes up a semitone or something like that.
D2.
It actually intelligently, right, takes like, even your melody that you're playing, and it not transposes it. It changes the key of it, makes it sound different, and you can make it so that okay, the second bar now is the same rhythm, but it's melodically a different key, and it's applied to everything that you want it to, and that's happening there. Maybe bar 3 you're going back to the original, and then bar 4 you're going to something totally different. So to me, having that capability is, when I found out about that, it's mind blowing. It's like, and maybe I do need to like make some more videos, my voices back to like kind of show exactly what that is. But that's one thing that
please do.
Just, yeah, definitely.
Because it is these subtle things in music production where you don't even realize you want to do that, and then you see it done.
Yep.
It's like everything in the universe. You think there are these limitations that you forget that they're even there.
Right.
And your mind just doesn't even go there because you're so used to those limitations. And then something, I mean, like the OP1 field has a handful of those moments for me where I'm like, oh, damn, that was possible with this thing in my hands this whole time. And I didn't know nor did I, maybe it's through a pro tip from another producer, you realize like, oh, that is the missing piece to this music that sounds flat or is too much of a repetitive loop. So yeah, I'd have to like hear it to see. It sounds game changing because obviously one of the big limitations on the OP1 is that you set your drums and you cannot change once you have that looped. You cannot change them up. So everybody, I guess you can if you get really good. I've never gotten really good at looping different segments of the track.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But if you're just staying within that one loop, the drums are just going to sound the same the whole way through versus a real sequencer where you can add and subtract and which is a whole
subtract, and utilizing this performance track right here. This is the other thing.
Telling me.
Sure, this performance track here allows you to basically have a beat playing, and the bottom notes on the keyboard are now broken into, all of these are applied to your synths, or I might be saying this opposite, but like some are applied to the synth, the first half, and then the second half are applied to your drums, and each of these do something different to the performance of what's playing. So for example, pressing and holding like this first button, which corresponds, I'm looking at it like up there, which corresponds to wherever over here, these both will mute out all of the, this is going to mute out all of the drums or all the synths. Again, I might be mixing them up, but this is going to mute them all out. So while you're performing, like for me, holding this in my hand and being like, oh, okay, like with just headphones in and just jamming out and being like experiencing music that I just made and like remixing it, but just for myself, is one of the most satisfying things in the world.
I was on a flight back too. So I study with this ashram in India each morning, just digitally, but I visit once a year. And on my flight back, I just played my OP1 for 19 straight hours, or whatever it was. Like that is a feeling that people, especially if they tried guitar or piano and they're so used to needing to be in a certain place to make music or not being able to layer loops. Man, to echo your point, man, that is one hell of a feeling to listen to the music you're making back. I mean, the whole flight. Whatever it was, 19 hours.
This is what I need to know from you, because as I think what you want to know and wanted to know, and I'm inspired now to like even make more, like talk about this more. This is not the cool, sexy product from TE, which is at a time why I was like, I love using this, but let me go ahead and like make some videos on the OP1 field, even though I didn't love the OP1 field at first, right? I was like, it's a beautiful, amazing piece of technology, but I just don't understand how to have a ton of fun with it compared to this. But now I'm inspired to talk a little bit more about this, but I'm getting there with the OP1 field. I want to know from you though, like for the last couple of minutes here, like what about the OP1 field do you love, and like what is your workflow like? Like you can just kind of just share, just so I can maybe even be inspired, like, oh, I didn't even think about using that. Do you use a sketch sequencer, for example? Because I've never used that, and I'm curious about. Not really.
But like my go-tos for it, just because the sequencer on it is so basic that it's not the most fun part of it to use. But like my workflow in it, there is a rephaser piano that changed everything. So the anyone that's listening, that doesn't know the difference of the OP1 field from the OP1, because I'll tell people the OP1 field is amazing, and they're like, yeah, I played around with the OP1 back in the day. It just sounded like a Game Boy. And I say, yeah, well, the OP1 field has the mother reverb, so it has the reverb engine that is so dope, changes everything, so beautiful. And then also I tell people to get, I have it in a link. Let me bring it up so that people can, this is the gift to them, is for them to download this rephaser sample pack. And this sample pack is what really changed things for me was the piano, the vintage piano from this. Let's see where it is, because I think this might be the most, for any OP1 field interested people, that'll be the most interesting thing. I send them all day today. Let me find, or the most interesting thing I say all day today. Let me find it.
While you're looking for it, I'll just say too, one thing that I just discovered, and it's so basic about the OP1 field and the iPad mini that I use, is by just connecting one USB-C cable between the two, you could then use your OP1 field as a MIDI controller and control the audio of the amazing synths that are on the iPad. And you could record those into tape.
Well, and Bluetooth. Bluetooth. Do you ever use Bluetooth
too? I do for sure. Bluetooth works as well. But I'm saying, like, because you need to have audio anyway.
Right.
But yeah, you can. There's so many different ways to make it work. But it's so cool being able to just open up that playing field and have all these other sounds that you can record into tape the same exact way that you would, the sounds that are on the OP1. So I think that's kind of aligned with what you're about to share.
Yes. Yeah. Here it is. So here's the. It is the field cassette pack. So if someone looks up, rephaser, rephazer field cassette pack, and then within there is a and DM me if people are listening to this, and on Instagram I'll shoot you the link, and also shoot over 2 videos that I made on my workflow, because I kept getting friends to like in big bands, like really awesome artists to buy the OP1 field, and I just was like, okay, I keep saying this, I might as well record it on Loom, the tool I said before.
Nice.
But so that piano sound, with the reverb to where you don't need a sustain pedal, sounded so melodic, so beautiful to me. I grew up playing piano, sounded so good. It basically allowed me to take my piano everywhere that I went. That was the one of the biggest aha moments. Then obviously being able to add in drums in a few different ways. My favorite way though is to take Splice on my phone or my iPad, but take Splice on my phone and just find whatever the right drum sequence I want for sample for the OP1. I plug that in with USB-C because it does need the USB to get audio into it. So that's my drums. Piano is beautiful. I'll do bass piano. I'll do more of the lead piano on there, and then I also love the gyroscope on this thing. Have you played around with the gyroscope?
Not enough, clearly.
Okay, this is I cannot believe this device exists because of these things. So let's see what I've got. So maybe you can hear a little bit of this.
Sure.
So with the gyroscope, and people watching will be able to see this. So this is what I'm going to do. So, all right. Oh, looper got off. This is the part of the convo that if you're not a teenager in engineering nerd, you're going to totally check out. But, okay, so in my, this is the piano. so you can just hear, piano being played.
Yeah.
Probably hear that through the speaker. So I'm going to turn the reverb up, and then in the LFO section, I'm going to set the gyroscope on, and I've got the reverse keys going. So I'll turn that up to, let's say, 3 octaves up.
I'm trying to hear. Okay,
let me put this right by my speaker.
Yeah. Wait, can you stop the music playing and play just the keys? Would that help me be able to hear it for a sec?
Let me try.
Yeah.
All right. So it's reversing the keys using the gyroscope as I'm doing it to accelerate or decelerate the reversal of the keys. So let me play for a few seconds. I'll play for a few seconds just for you to hear it. So that in its own right is cool because it's almost like a violin or like a theremin, if you've ever seen those with the hand.
Sure.
So that's a really unique kind of string sound. Then I add in the arp, the arpeggiator, and then you get a That's like a very subtle sound or a subtle thing that I could not believe that it had a gyroscope that could then modify the sound in a dimension that you can't get that on any other synth out there. So not only is the piano so small that I can rotate it so that it's adding these dimensionality to the sound that you really need to be playing a violin to get. But you can get that with a synth that not only fits in your backpack, but also has this technology of a gyroscope, and it just didn't exist 10 years ago. So that like nuance, I mean, that's the makings of an amazing track right there. Is drums, a bass piano, a lead piano, and then you add in these string-esque sounds that are ethereal and beautiful. So that was in the tiny nuances to the sound, especially if you're looping over and over again. Those tiny nuances keep the sound really fresh for the audience, and then also for me, to where I can just play that over and over again. Probably should have had it set up to the larger speaker, the OB4, so you could hear it better. But I can play that for 2 hours because I won't even be able to recreate what I'm doing because it had to have been at that angle or
right.
The gyroscope
makes it super unique, dude. It's a couple things, and then we'll get ready to wrap up. First of all, just really enjoyed the conversation, and I think with what you just described there too, that's like another added thing that might be obvious to some OP1 field owners, but wasn't for me until recently. But it's the whole idea of like bringing other sounds into the device, right? If you're not as inspired as you feel like you need to be with what's there, first of all, you can tweak. This is again me realizing this recently, but like the presets that are there, those are just presets. You could find, if you're into shaping sounds, you have that, but also sampling.
Splice is like the world's greatest sample engine. It's pretty cheap, and it's in your phone everywhere you go. To add that into the OP1 field kind of universe. I mean, that the OP1 field, that Splice specifically, and then a little USB cord to the iPhone that you get on Amazon. Simple. Those three things go with me basically everywhere. I mean, I take my OP1 everywhere. Yeah,
gotta love that. All right, so we're gonna get ready to wrap up. I just wanted to say again, man, like truly enjoyed the conversation. It was really cool just doing this, versus what we've done a lot, like texting and video chats, as you mentioned before. I learned a ton, and I'm looking forward to continuing the relationship and Yeah, it's just seeing what you continue to do with these companies that you're building up right now. It's really cool to see, and yeah, man, I appreciate the time.
Likewise, Kevin. Like I said, I appreciate you putting everything you're putting into creating this content for the world that we get to freely enjoy. So anyone out there, I would love if you'd be down to put your Venmo or something in the descriptions and your videos, just so that we know how we can. I mean, I can text you for that, but I think there are a lot of other people that would love to essentially buy you a coffee or a Magic Mind because of what you're putting out freely for us. So thank you, and do follow up by putting that in the show notes to this episode, so that we can. I'm sure there are other apps where we could send you money, but whatever that way is to support.
Yeah.
You, it'd be a blessing to support you back, because I love these videos you put out there.
Dude, that means more than you know. So I definitely appreciate that, and hope you have a great rest of the day, buddy.
You too, Kev. Thank you, buddy.
All right. Take care.